The following podcast is improvised satire and all characters are fictional.
Hello, dear listener. I'm Dean Ardenfell, and this is The Corporation, the podcast where I interview employees of the many subsidiaries of my favorite multinational conglomerate, Hogswood-Cooper Media. My first guest is an accomplished attorney and the titular partner, Shunk, in the law firm of Germain, Tinsley & Shunk. She acts as defense counsel to some of America's most important billionaires, businesses, and yes, Supreme Court justices. On weekends, she coaches kickboxing with the elderly. Please welcome Danielle Shunk, Esquire. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, so nice to meet you or see you. Have we met before?
I don't believe so. No, I don't know why you would have. Yeah, yeah.
I thought I had seen you in my practice before. You're not a billionaire?
Absolutely not.
Oh,
no.
well, then we certainly haven't met. And also, just so you know, my last name is pronounced Shunke.
Oh, Shunke.
Yes,
okay.
Shunke.
Does it have some kind of umlaut or accent aigu or something?
I just like it to be said that way.
I see.
And so people usually do what I tell them to do. So,
I get it. So sometimes when powerful people make a decision, people just go with it. It's even though the spelling and the history of that name doesn't match.
It doesn't make any sense at all, but it is my choice. Thank you.
I'm already a little intimidated, if I'm honest.
Good, as you should be.
Okay.
As you should be at all times.
Well, you don't get to be partner in a law firm like this without having authority over people. Yeah,
it's true. Yes.
Yeah. Do people?
I lower my voice like Elizabeth Holmes. Maybe
do you?
Maybe you've heard.
Like
yes,
if you
I
pitch the pitch.
I bring it down so that people feel fear when they see me. Elizabeth, my friend Liz, as I call her.
I see. I didn't realize that was a thing she did or that women did. Because do women do that to sound more like men, to be more powerful?
Oh, well, I don't know. I don't know. I have no answers to that. But I would say you should direct that question to Lizzie, as I sometimes call her, on a good day. But you would have to contact her in prison where she is at the moment.
Okay. All right.
I'll give you her number.
I'm not really up on her story.
She did Theranos. Maybe you've heard of it.
And did you defend her?
well, I don't really like to talk about things that I've done that weren't successful. So we'll say
move on. Yes.
No to that
I don't
one.
like to call people out. It's not a gotcha podcast. I want to celebrate your successes as much as you do here.
Thank you.
So let's get into that. I mean,
thank you. As long as you remember, it's Shunke. Thank you.
Shunke,
thank you so much.
Danielle Shunke, Esquire. Okay. So you're defending what some people call the indefensible, the billionaires who have sort of allegedly defrauded the American people.
Allegedly.
You're getting them off of the hook. Is there a lot of pressure on you as a defense attorney when it comes to these big cases like this?
Well, thank you for saying allegedly, because I want to point out it's very important to remember allegedly. That is the important word there.
Yeah.
And I never feel pressure in any situation because I am, I take a cocktail of vitamins every day. And so I never feel any type of pressure. Okay. And my brain is that of a 15-year-old, but a very smart 15-year-old.
Wow.
And my skin is that of a 20-year-old, but a 20-year-old who was in the blood of a baby. And so I am doing very well all the time. I forgot what you asked, but the point is I'm doing extremely well and I'm very young. And if you ask my age, I will not tell you the truth.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I did ask any of that.
I don't think you did, but I got distracted because I was thinking about the vitamins that I take every day.
I see.
And the blood of the baby. But not really blood of a baby. That's just a brand name. That's just a brand name of my
like
moisturizer.
A serum or something. I see.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. It feels like you really need me to know how young, strong, smart, and powerful you are.
Yes.
And almost like you're protesting too much. Is that a thing where you walk into a room and, I don't know, for whatever reason, people don't take you seriously and you have to convince them somehow that you're worthy of authority?
But,
Why would that happen?
It's so interesting that you bring that up because I sometimes people underestimate me. You would be shocked. And it's because of my powerful bosoms, I would say. And people feel scared. They feel scared and titillated at the same time, scared, horny. And
I deliberately have not mentioned your powerful bosoms.
Thank you.
Because I didn't want to be rude.
We can show them now. And now that I've put that out there, yes, sometimes people do underestimate me, especially people like, some clients that I hate to name names, but I will say Brett Kavanaugh. I call him Cavi because he's a good friend.
Sure.
The first day he was so entranced by my bosoms, I had to give him a cocktail of many different drugs, medications, so that I put him into a deep sleep. I whispered in his ear, I said, "It's going to be okay. I'll take care of you." And he is not going to prison. So, yeah.
That's true. No, in fact, famously, he was nominated to the Supreme Court.
Yes. But,
was he ever sued?
Well,
was there ever a chance that he would go to
now
prison?
that I brought this up, I feel that maybe it wasn't information that should have been told.
Okay,
so strike that from the record.
Okay.
He was never about to go to prison.
No. I
Was
mean,
he? No.
whatever antics he got up to in his past
Allegedly,
when he was
of course.
young and boofing people and doing things like
Yes,
that.
the boofing.
I'm sure that none of that was prosecutable.
Not at all. And that's why he's not in prison.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're friends with all these people, huh? And and you're drugging them without their consent just to make them feel comfortable.
Well, sometimes when I go to Cavi's house, he gets overwhelmed by the bosoms.
By the bosoms.
By the bosoms.
That
so
tracks for
overwhelmed.
me. I don't know much about him, but
he
that
loves
tracks.
Buffing.
He loves
you know, that's one of his
buffing.
favorites.
Well, I mean, it really is a curse, isn't it? I don't know if that I've ever heard bosom pluralized at all, but even though it is a plural thing, not to call your bosoms a thing. I think I'm down a rabbit hole here. I think the point is that
if you want, I could prepare you a cocktail. Of
no, please don't. No.
Are you sure? And you'll wake up in a few hours
No.
and I'll be singing you a song.
Wow. It sounds pleasant. It does sound pleasant.
That's what I do for all my clients, really.
But you're sort of cursed with this like power and looks and bosoms and skin and baby blood and all of it.
Yes.
So you're in these rooms where your whole job is to take someone who allegedly is defrauding the American public and get them off the hook.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about building a strategy for that?
Oh, well, that's a great question. I appreciate you saying allegedly again, because of course, none of them have ever actually done any crime. So usually what I do is I wake up at around 4 a.m. And what do? I drink a coffee and I write a letter to myself. And then I send it in the mail. And then sometimes I will receive the letter back 5 years later. And then I just kind of check in to see, did I win the case? And I always do, except for, as I said, with Lizzie.
There's so many questions I have now that opens up. One is, how do you send a letter to yourself that doesn't get to yourself for another 5 years?
Well,
does it have multiple destinations?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I have many homes. I have a lot of different homes. I send it to a lot of, I have a house in the Hamptons.
Yep.
I also have another house in an undisclosed location. I could take you there, but first I give you the cocktail.
Sure.
And then when you're asleep, then when you wake up, you're there, but you don't know where it is.
But I get it. It's been forwarded by your staff or what have you
so then it's
from house to house.
Confusing, house to house, and then I usually get it in 5 years.
I see. Now that's my first question. My second question is, so is there any legal work to getting people off the hook? Because it seems like you told me the story of your day as it pertains to your beauty regimen and your coffee. And I'm just wondering, is there any actual legal research or due diligence that goes into defending these people?
Oh, well, I mean, obviously, but
you must have a staff for that.
But I mean, I have a team. They do all that. Yeah. And I spend the majority of the day writing the letter to myself. Mm-hmm. But then the staff gives me notes at the end, and I look at the notes and I say, what did he do? Oh, a little bit of boofing, and then I put it down, and that's all I need to know. Honestly, that's all I need. Okay. They write little bullet points.
Oh, that's helpful. I heard that the former president would do that. He wouldn't read anything over one page, and they would give him a bunch of bullet points. And if they couldn't distill a complicated, diplomatic issue down to a single page, he wouldn't even read it.
Oh yeah, he's also a great friend of mine.
Oh, is he really?
Yes, one of my best friends. Yes.
Wow, another person that might be in prison.
Yeah, well, not if I had anything to do with it, which I cannot say at this point.
No, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. Well, it does. If I'm not mistaken, he probably is looking for a new lawyer at this point.
Well, you are correct, and I have thrown my hat in the ring.
Have you?
And he said, with bosoms like those, I'm not sure, because
I can't imagine him not being fully 100% distracted by your bosoms.
He's extremely distracted. But what I do is, as I said, I give him a cocktail of drugs. He falls asleep. Okay. And then when he wakes up, I'm singing him a song. I'm singing him a lullaby. And then he forgets about the bosoms. And then I give him some legal paperwork that my assistants have, the bullet points. I give it to him and I say, this is what we're going to do. It sort of seems like tit for tat, because I'm sure if you went back far enough in his history, he's put someone to sleep with a cocktail of drugs himself. Allegedly. I will say allegedly, and I cannot confirm nor deny.
So, but you're not taking advantage of anybody when you're doing that?
Oh, no. I just lay them down and I sing them a song. So then when they wake up, they feel they're like, oh, it's like the womb again.
Okay.
and
Okay.
then they
So
feel
like if
better.
I were to go in
Yeah.
and have a consultation with you and I was freaking out because I'm worried that I'm going to prison for
Yeah.
something that I allegedly did,
Yeah.
I'm freaking out and you really need me to calm down
Mhm.
in order to have a conversation about my legal defense. So what you're doing is essentially just like loosening me up a little bit, sort of like petting my head and saying there.
Yes.
And so that by the time I wake up, I'm more reasonable and you can make me feel emotionally better about my defense.
Exactly.
That's
It's a
such an
cocktail
interesting,
of
it's like a real
drugs.
bedside manner that
It
you have with your
is.
clients.
Yeah, it's almost like I'm a doctor, but I
Yeah.
do not have the licensing. But it is similar to being a
Well,
doctor.
yeah, or like a really like an old timey nurse that like puts your head on their bosom and says, there, it's
Exactly.
going to be okay.
Exactly. But see, it's very confusing because it's to take the focus away from the bosom. But sometimes by doing it kind of puts the focus back on the
Sure.
bosom because it's a very
If
motherly
I'm waking up on the
role.
floor looking up at you, I'm probably going to
It
notice your
does,
bosoms.
you
yeah.
know, but at least then you're calm when you do it and you're not in a frenzy. Because you know how sometimes people are in a frenzy when they see bosoms.
Sure, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure that you've been in a frenzy
Yeah,
at least
there are
once or
whole,
twice on the street.
there are whole websites, I think, devoted to
Exactly.
frenzies around bosoms.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And you say things like awooga and you get, you know, when people do that?
Yeah,
And they
sure.
say awooga and then they
Yeah.
get wild and
Yeah.
they need to calm down. And so when they wake up, they will not say awooga anymore because they've lost the power of speech for a few minutes. But
Sure.
it does come back eventually, except for some people who have sadly indefinitely lost the power of speech. But most people.
Okay. Well, that's
fine.
probably due to their age, and probably
Yes.
the fact that they're saying awooga in general that's a generational thing.
It
It's
is.
at least 3 or 4 generations back. You have a Mitch McConnell or what have you who can't speak at all.
Well,
and is
those
saying
are a lot of my
awooga.
clients.
Sure,
you know,
I bet they
the
are. Yeah.
people in the age group where they say awooga.
And they need to be
Yeah.
kept in power where they are, despite any medical issues they
course.
have.
Of course.
Yeah, and or any legal trouble that they might be in.
Well, as you can see, Mitch is doing quite well.
Sure is. Yeah.
There have been a couple times where I have given him a cocktail.
I think
and-
the whole of America right now wants to give him a cocktail and tell him go to sleep,
Go to sleep.
It's going to be okay.
I think you're right.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'm thinking, as I see these videos more and more, I say, oh, Mitch, maybe it's time. Maybe
Yeah.
it's time for the final cocktail.
Oh, there is a final cocktail.
I only give it to people when things are starting to look
You
really...
definitely passed the bar. You're a lawyer.
Yes, no, I'm
Okay.
in New York. In
Okay,
New York.
just checking.
But not in other states, only
Yeah.
New York. But sometimes in DC as well,
Okay,
too.
'cause
But I
what
have them
you're-
come to me.
What you're
I
describing
fly them.
doesn't really sound as much like legal advice or legal defense as it does, I don't know, some kind of psychiatric emotional care.
You would think.
Yeah.
You would think.
But I mean,
Yeah.
is there any truth to the fact that, like, as a law firm, you're essentially not really a law firm, but more of an emotional support for billionaires who have been accused?
Well, when you put it like that, what you're saying does make sense. However, I must tell you that I am a real lawyer. I did go to Columbia,
Okay.
class of 2004.
Okay.
But I still look like a 15-year-old, and that part's important to remember.
And I noticed that you dropped your voice a few notches when you said that too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Well, as I learned from Lizzie, if
Yeah.
you want, just speak like this, and then men will
Uh-huh.
listen to what you're saying.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
so interesting. I mean, we're going all over the map here, and I want to make sure we talk about your hobby. You're teaching
God.
kickboxing to the elderly.
Oh, well, you got to give back.
Yeah.
You got to give back.
Yeah.
And I like them. I want them to be strong and armed too. So
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to institute in part of my program that I do this. It's kickboxing for the elderly. It's, Upper West Side, people who
Okay.
have some means, as you know,
Yeah.
because those are the only people that I talk
Interact
to
with,
in
yeah.
any way at any time, except for you and I are talking right now. And I don't know if you have any means, but
I do not,
Oh.
famously. And I've been told, please don't make this podcast by Hogswood-Cooper many times. And
yet you still do.
And I do, but just for the love of the organization, because I really think what they're doing is cool.
Well, that's you're an entrepreneur,
Kind of. I mean, we're not
Yeah.
making any money with this podcast. It's really just a love letter to my favorite corporation. you
Oh,
know?
that's nice. Oh,
Yeah.
that's very nice. Well, make a physical letter and send it to yourself, and you'll probably get it back in
Probably immediately.
maybe 5 years.
I live in a basement apartment. I think it would
Oh,
come back pretty
okay.
quickly.
It'll probably
yeah.
come right back.
Yeah,
Wait,
yeah.
what were we? Oh, yeah, the elderly.
Yeah.
So I teach the elderly to, I teach them. I want them to defend themselves.
Mm.
And now the second part of the program that I'm thinking is arming the elderly, because
Okay.
who needs guns the most in this country? The elderly.
Right, because
Right.
they're the most vulnerable. And
Exactly.
if someone breaks in, they need to be able to defend themselves. And
Yeah.
having a loaded weapon in their hand,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, it just makes sense. And
I think we agree. I think
yeah.
I think the elderly should be senators
Yes.
and gun owners for as long as humanly possible before they're put in the ground.
Exactly. And we were talking about my good friend Mitchie, as I like to call him. And what I'm thinking for Mitchie is like, if he has one of these moments again, because it's very embarrassing for him, when he has these moments where he's kind of just staring off. And I thought to myself, Danielle, what could you do for him? And I'm thinking maybe if we arm him with 2 rifles, and so then next time that happens, he shoots them into the air.
Okay.
And then there's no embarrassment because people are like, whoa, what's happening? And they're afraid for their lives.
Sure.
And so then when people are afraid for their lives, they're not judging that maybe his brain stopped working because of a cocktail of drugs or whatever it may be.
Right.
That's
Plus,
happened
guns
over the
make
years.
anyone look tough.
Right.
So he's looking weak right now. He'll look tough when he shoots guns in the air like
2
Yosemite
at the same
Sam.
time.
Yeah.
If he shoots them at the same time, people will be hiding. They'll be afraid for their lives. And then by the time the embarrassing moment is over, everyone's forgotten because they're like, why would
It's so nice of you to think like, what can I get him? Like, what do you get a man who's losing everything, including his mind? Yeah. Wow.
Thank you. Well, I'm a giver. And so for the elderly, I want to give them as many guns as possible. But I'm starting out with just teaching them some physical fighting skills so that they have that first and then come the guns.
And are you worried about their flexibility or their bone density or muscle mass?
Because I give them a cocktail of things.
Okay, I got
and
you.
then they just kind of
Yeah. Okay, you got to loosen them up somehow.
Yeah, and I always have a backpack full of these various cocktails that I give to people.
You're the first high-powered lawyer I've ever met. Well, I've ever met in general.
Yeah.
But I didn't expect you to have a rolling suitcase full of pharmaceuticals and vitamins. Very interesting. That's why I do this podcast. I love learning about people, Well, I'd love to get on to my second guest here and come back to you at the end. Is that all right?
Yes, of course.
Excellent. All right. Well, folks, my second guest today leads a literal dream team. We'll find out what that means. But first, let's pause and hear a quick word from our sponsor. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And we're back. I'd like to remind you at this point, as I do every show, that I, Dean Ardenfell, am not and have never been an employee of Hogswood-Cooper Media or any of its subsidiaries. Okay, we've been talking to Danielle Schunke from Germain, Tinsley, and Schunke, and now I'd like to bring in my second guest, who works for a totally different subsidiary of Hogswood-Cooper. He is the head of Dream Innovation at Stonkel, a tech company that received over $50 million in venture capital funds last year, despite no one really understanding what it is that Stonkel does. In his role, my guest manages a team of 30 people, all of whom are tasked only with using their literal dreams to come up with the next big tech disruptor. In his spare time, he looks at the moon with binoculars. Please welcome Leo Grants. Hey, Leo.
Hey, Dean. Thanks so much for having me here.
Oh, it's great to have you. So you work for this tech company. Nobody seems to know what it does. Do you have, you're kind of like in a whole other wing that's devoted to innovation. Do you have any sense of what they're up to?
The question that people tend to ask is, what is it that Stonkel does? But I find it more useful to think about, what is it that Stonkel doesn't do?
Okay.
Because we're trying to really institute a paradigm shift.
Okay.
In all of life. Right?
Sure. Yeah. And I know that's what's been happening is that the CEO's been putting out all this language. You're about to have an IPO that I think is going to be huge. And yet everyone's using a lot of language like paradigm shift and disruption, but there doesn't seem to be a product or a service being advertised. And everyone's still freaking out and throwing money at it. What do you think? Why do you think that's happening?
You have to think about the real possibilities here, right? When you're confining yourself to just one specific product, when you're confining yourself just to one specific industry, sure, it makes it easier to get the duller folks in society onto the same page as you. Yeah. But when you really want to make a change that's going to truly revolutionize the way that we go about living our daily life, living through the events that define our existence, you have to think bigger, right?
Right. Wow. I'm already feeling inspired. I just got goosebumps, and I'm not even really sure why. Which is, I guess I get it now. I'm starting to come around to Stonkel and why everyone's so excited about it, even despite the fact that I don't have any new information. So your development wing is just it's just 30 people getting paid over $200,000 a year to sit around and talk about their dreams and how they could apply to tech disruption products. How exciting is that? That must have been a thrill for you to just be given free rein to just base a bunch of stuff on your nonsense dreams.
We show up every day we have our dreams ready to analyze so that we can transform those into world-changing products that are really going to advance humanity to the next. I mean, I don't want to overspeak, but advance humanity to the next tier of existence, you know?
So can you give me an example maybe of a dream that you had, or maybe the elements of it? I mean, I know no one likes to hear each other's dreams, but that's kind of your whole job.
Yeah, sure.
So I mean, something that might have inspired the team?
Yeah, so I think this is a really clear example. We were working on product Gemini, and I came in, I had this dream where I was staring at the moon and then the moon started staring back at me. Okay. But then it only had one eye. Okay. But then all of a sudden it turned into an owl and flew away.
Okay. And that was the whole dream?
That was the whole dream.
Wow.
So you can imagine what kind of innovations we can derive from.
You're getting emotional now.
It just... we're gonna change the world, and I can't talk about everything that we're gonna do leading up to the IPO, right?
Yeah, sure.
Dean, I can't wait for you to be able to see what we are working on right now.
Me too. I mean, so what would be when you have a dream that you're looking at the moon and it only has one eye and then it turns into an owl? How do you take that information and distill it into something that might be useful for a product development team?
Well, you got to take a step back and really make sure that you're looking at it from all angles. I feel like even just talking to you right now, I can see that you're really focusing on some of the details when you need to be looking at the big picture.
Okay.
It can be really easy to focus on, okay, what's this product that we're working on? What's the next step for the company? And you lose the vision of the 500-year journey, right?
Oh, wow. You're on a 500-year timeline with this development.
I mean, 500 years is the beginning. Don't get me wrong. But
so eons then.
Yeah. Here's the thing. The changes that we're going to make for life are going to persist through the ages, right?
Wow.
Society as we are used to it, the way that we understand things and power structures to be established, these aren't permanent things. This is just how the world is structured right now.
Wow. I'm getting so inspired again. I'm getting like the hairs on my back of my neck are standing up, and I don't know why, because I asked you a question about how you can contextualize your own dream into a product, and you basically gave me a non-answer. But I don't mind, because I think, you know what, I started thinking to myself, Dean, you're asking questions that to people of 500 years from now are going to make no sense and be irrelevant because you'll be dead and gone. And you're giving me a sense of my own mortality and the timeline that we're all on. And what a noble pursuit to be doing this.
I feel like you're finally
seeing it. And obviously many other people, venture capitalists and people itching to buy your stock, are all seeing it as well. I'm sure that's what they want. They're not looking for a short-term payday. They're looking for changing the world over eons and thousands of years. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you talk to these venture capitalists, right, they're not in it to make money.
No.
They're in it to better humanity.
Of course they are, yeah.
And that's why we have had so much success raising money for Stonkel.
Yeah.
Our IPO, I'm telling you, is going to knock your socks off. But
amazing.
I mean, between you and me, I don't know if you're going to have that much use for socks in the future anyway. So
wow. Okay. That's maybe the first concrete thing you gave me. But I do want to bring my first guest in here and have you all, because I'm sure there's some crossover, there's some synergy here. I don't know if you've ever been acquainted with Stonkel, Danielle, but what are your thoughts?
Well, Dean, first, I love your use of the word synergy. Thank you so much. I really do think you're going places, although right now you have no money and no prospects. But I do think in the future that you could, probably on the 500-year timeline that you've established, right? I think that you could. And I have heard of Stonkel before. I've heard they're real movers and shakers. And they've raised a lot of money without having any sort of business plan in any sense. And I love that. It reminds me of my good friend Lizzie, who I told you about before, and Theranos. And I love the innovation. I love people who are able to raise money without having a clear goal of where the money is going in any way, shape, or form. And so I got to give it up. I mean, I'm very impressed.
I do need to jump in and say that Stonkel does not lack a business plan of any form.
Oh, of course.
People just tend to not count ours because it's entirely pictograph.
Okay.
Oh,
Gotcha.
well, see, that's probably where I got a little confused. So you have a business plan, but in pictograph form.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay,
So it makes sense.
that makes sense that why a business like that would have a whole wing devoted to the visuals in a dream being sort of out front leading the innovation of the business. Yeah.
The other senses of the dream can also be very important for product development. Don't get me wrong.
Okay, I see. I'm really looking forward to seeing what, if any specific detail we could get out of it. But and I appreciate, Leo, that you've really been trying to avoid eye contact with my other guests' bosoms.
Yes, thank you. If you start to get overwhelmed in any way, I have my backpack behind me. If you start to get overwhelmed, if you feel something in your mind that's saying awooga quietly, and then the awooga is coming out more, I'm happy to give you. But you seem very under control, and I respect that. Thank you.
It's very reassuring, though, knowing that I'll have that option.
Yeah, just in case. And I do have I will sing a song. I'll give you a little. I go, when you wake up, that's the first thing that you hear.
Oh, that's lovely.
You'll hear
like
that.
Like a mermaid on an island.
Thank you.
This is so amazing. One of my engineers, Trent, came into the office the other day, and he was describing a dream that matches what you're describing, that song.
That song. Trent heard it in a dream. See?
So is there any chance that some of the dreams that your team is describing are actually drug-induced comas that my other guest has put them in?
Now, I don't want to say whether or not I know Trent. Did Trent, in his dream, I don't know if he told you, but did he wake up and see someone kind of like a flowing hair and bosoms? And did he heard, like that?
And like a powerful woman
like
who looks 20 but probably is older?
This is all ringing bells.
Okay. I hate to tell you, but that wasn't exactly a dream. That was a drug-induced coma.
Okay, but that could be very useful to Leo's team because, I assume insomnia is a thing when you're when you're under a bunch of stress to go to sleep and have really innovative dreams, maybe you need assistance, yeah?
I can't speak to Trent's experience, but I can say that regardless of what inspired it, we all believe in his paradigm shifting thoughts. So.
Sure. Again, not quite sure what you mean there. But Leo, I also want to say you have a hobby of looking at the moon through binoculars.
Oh, yeah.
Why do you do that and what for? And I guess the moon was part of that dream you mentioned before, but you spend a lot of time squinting at the moon through a set of binoculars?
Yeah. I mean, the real thing about the moon in binoculars is it's a great backdrop against which you can judge different sets of binoculars. Now, what you might not know about me is that I make binoculars in my basement.
Okay, so I really wish I'd had that in my notes, that your hobby is making your own binoculars. And that's the moon is just a fixed point in space by which you test the binoculars.
Looking at the moon is the hobby.
Okay, as a means of testing homemade binoculars, which is an interesting fact about you.
And not so much testing, just seeing the difference between them, right? Like different ones are going to have different...
What are you, grinding lenses in your own garage?
If you want to have a piece of machinery that works right, you have to understand everything that goes into it, right?
Right. I mean, it's God bless you. It's the first tangible thing I've heard you talk about making.
When you're working on such a large time scale, having something that I can go home to and work with my hands is reassuring because I can't always hold changing society in my arms,
No, the zeitgeist is hard to shoulder,
Exactly. And we're working really hard on it, and it's gonna, our IPO's coming up, and let me tell you, things are going to change around
I
here.
sense almost an insistent quality to you, almost a defensiveness. Do people disbelieve that you're about to change the world?
I mean, when somebody comes to you and they say, hey, I need this impossible legal defense.
Right.
And you say, I can do that. Do they always believe that you can actually do that? I imagine sometimes people are in disbelief. They say, you can't save me.
Well, that's a very good point, Leo. Yes, people are often in disbelief, as I said, mainly because of my looks and my bosoms and my youthful skin. They think this sexy baby no, I don't think she went to Columbia. And I say, goo goo gaga, you're wrong. And then, what was your question? I'm sorry. People don't believe? Oh, yes. So when people see me being a sexy baby, they don't believe. But then I show them my law degree. It's on my wall. And then they say, maybe. And then when they wake up from their coma, they believe. So I think maybe what you could do if you're having these conversations and people are like, oh, 500-year plan, that sounds crazy. Just give them a little bit, put the serum in, and then there's.
I would argue that that's what Stonkel is doing intellectually.
Yes,
I think that both of you are trying to put certain people to sleep so that they won't ask questions about very concrete things that are really concerning to them, such as, what do you make? Or how do I get off the hook here?
Well, I think it's very clear what he makes.
We have a number of things in the pipeline right
okay,
now.
Love that.
So certainly you're going to see a lot from Stonkel in the next 3 to 5 years, especially.
Okay.
But after that, there's going to be a little bit of a lull until 15 years out.
Okay, so you're going to do 3 to 5 years and then 10-year break,
and then nothing from
okay,
and then from year 17 or 20 to 500, we can expect great things.
Only the best.
Amazing.
Great.